Good afternoon. I'm just running my dishwater. Got all my dishes cleaned up, everything wiped down. And these blackberries that I bought at the farmer's market yesterday are beautiful. They're huge. But they're so sour that when David put one in his mouth last night in the middle of the night, he got strangled and had a coughing fit. So I washed out a couple of pint jars, and after we finish our tomato pies, I'm going to make him a couple of pints of blackberry jelly. So I think the amount of sugar you have to put in jelly will just coat them right there. But we're about to make tomato pie. Tomato pie is a southern tradition in our house. We do them in the summertime because you want to use the freshest tomatoes, hopefully vine ripe, homegrown tomatoes. If you don't have any homegrown tomatoes, you can get some from the local produce stand. Tomatoes have a lot of juice in them, so we've got to render some of that juice out or our pie will be soupy, and we don't want it to be soupy. We're going to take, I've already washed these by the way, we're going to take out the core and we're going to slice them. And we're going to slice them about as thick as you would if you were making a tomato sandwich, okay? Not too thin, not too thick, about like that. And we're going to take a cookie sheet. I put aluminum foil on there because I don't like to clean up the mess. And we're going to put a little bit of oil on here. Now don't use olive oil because olive oil has a flavor. It's a wonderful flavor. It tastes really good. But we don't need the olive oil flavor competing with our bacon, which is the other important ingredient in a tomato pie. So we're going to put a little oil on there. This, of course, is an oil that doesn't have any flavor. Mine's peanut oil. You could use Wesson oil or vegetable oil or whatever you want to. And we're just putting a light layer of that on here so they don't stick. So you'll be able to get them up when they come up out of the oven, okay? So we're going to take those and we're just going to lay them on the cookie sheet just like this. You can even do the ends because you took the core out. We're going to fill the entire cookie sheet up with tomatoes. It's depending on the size of your tomatoes, it's going to take 4 or 5. And a cookie sheet will do 1 pie with the other ingredients. Then we're just going to very lightly salt them. Put a little pepper on. Now I'm going to stick these cookie sheets, like I said, I'm going to do 1 cookie sheet per pie that I'm going to make in a 350-degree oven for an hour. And then we'll come back to it. Wait 1 minute and I'll show you what they look like. Alright, I got to tell you guys something that I think is hilarious that I noticed in the smoke alarm ribeye video. My trash can sits right here, and every time I bend over, the lid opens. I thought that was hilarious. Here's our tomatoes. Are they beautiful? They smell yummy. They just have a little more depth to flavor because we took time to do that. Now the next thing we're going to do is par bake our pie crust. I use deep dish pie crust. If you are a baker like Juju, then you might want to make your own pie crust. And if I'm having a big dinner and I need a big one, then I might make my own pie crust and cook it in a lasagna pan. But if you're in a time crunch, just buy a pie crust. I buy deep dish pie crust. And why am I making 2 and not 1? You can eat 1. If you've got a guest coming over, you might eat 2. You can always put 1 in the freezer, but here's an even better idea. Why don't you share it with somebody you love? Like a neighbor that's been under the weather for a couple of days that you know about. Or what about that sweet little old lady that sits in front of you at church on Sunday? Can you imagine how many people that sweet lady has fed over the years and nobody ever thinks to bring her a special gift? So why don't you make it on Saturday, wrap it up, and take it to her on Sunday for her Sunday lunch, okay? So we're going to make 2, and we're going to do what's called par bake them, which just means pre-bake them a little bit. When I do this, I always punch some holes in it to let some air because they're going to kind of bubble up. And the reason you do that is because this is doughy, and the filling that we're going to put in there is very moist, and we don't want it to be soupy or doughy in the bottom. So we're going to cook these crusts just a little bit before we add all the ingredients, okay? I'm going to put them in a 350-degree oven for about 7 to 8 minutes, and then we'll take them out, and they can just sit and just hang out. The standard tomato pie, the one that my family loves, has 3 ingredients in the actual pie and 3 ingredients in the topping. The ingredients in the pie are tomatoes, bacon, and onions. Who can go wrong with that, right? The topping has cheese, mayonnaise, and sour cream. Could it get any better than that? I don't think so. There's some other variations, and we'll talk about those. But I'm going to get my bacon frying, and then we'll add our onion to it. But I'm going to get this bacon, which is pretty fatty, so we're probably going to have to drain part of the fat off. I'm just going to get this chopped up and get it in my skillet, okay? So we're just going to chop it into pieces about 1/2 inch. That'll be fine. It's going to cook down, especially as fatty as this is. It's going to cook down to some pretty small pieces. And then we're going to probably have to drain off part of the grease before we add the onions. But you see how I'm doing that? We're going to do about 6 to 8 slices of bacon per pie. Okay, do these last 2 pieces. Get them over here in the skillet. Get them frying. You know, you could buy all of these ingredients at the supermarket, but if you have opportunity to support your neighbors and your local farmers, then do it. But don't let that keep you from cooking the pie. We're going to let that bacon start cooking, and while it's cooking, we're going to get our onion ready. My pies are done. See? They just puffed up just a little on the edges. That'll be fine. It'll go down a little bit when it starts cooling off. We're just going to set these over here and let them hang out until we're ready to put some filling in them, okay? Okay, now we're going to prepare our onion. Normally I would do 1 sweet onion per pie, but this is a big onion. This is called a Texas sweet onion that we got at the farmer's market, and I thought, why not? Let's give it a try. It smells sweet. It smells very close to a Vidalia, which is what we would have if we were at home. Looks very similar to a Vidalia, although it doesn't have any skin on it really. And it wasn't because they peeled them. I don't know how they grow like that, but we are going to take off the outer layer, just so we have some nice clean onion. Alright, see, that's as big as a medium-sized onion, wouldn't you say? So we're just going to go ahead and get it sliced. It doesn't have to be thin sliced. We don't want huge chunks, but it doesn't have to be tiny, tiny. So we're going to slice it that way, and we're going to slice them this way. That's a lot of onion. That's just half of it. That's probably about 1.5 cups, wouldn't you say? Or maybe 2 cups. So we're going to be in good shape. And it's so sweet, it's not even making my eyes burn. There you go. Look at that. Alright, we're just going to let this hang out here till we get our bacon ready to go. Okay? Guys, we're still waiting on the bacon to finish rendering out. But we tried this onion. Again, it's called a Texas sweet. And it is so sweet, you can just sit and eat it raw. It doesn't make your eyes burn. It's actually sweeter than any sweet onion or Vidalia onion I've ever cut up. It's absolutely delicious. So if you ever get a chance to get one, you need to try it. Okay guys, I've rendered the fat out of this bacon, and it looks pretty good. It looks better than I thought it was going to because it looked really, really fat. But normally if I just had a minor amount of grease, like maybe 2 or 3 tablespoons in my skillet, I just throw my onions in there with the bacon. We got a lot of fat. So I'm going to take this out and I'm going to drain part of this grease out of my skillet. We don't want our pies to be greasy. Okay, we got way more grease than we need. See? We probably got almost 1/2 cup. I only want a couple of tablespoons. So this is my precious little keeper of the golden ingredient, which is bacon grease. I keep this in the crisper drawer of my refrigerator, and if you look, it has a screen on the top of it. And so it strains out all of the little bits and pieces and leaves you with, let me show you. It leaves you with beautifully filtered bacon grease. Now, why in the world would you save bacon grease? You have to have it for your cornbread. And you have to have it for, sometimes when you cook green beans, it's good to flavor dried beans with. I bought some of those beautiful squash. I'm going to use some of that sweet onion and some squash, and I'm going to saute them in some bacon grease for dinner tomorrow, maybe for Sunday dinner. And I'm going to pour off a good half of this, okay? Oh, hush, I'm coming right back to you. There we go, just enough to cover the bottom. There's our bacon. We're going to get our onions going, and then when they're starting to cook pretty good, we'll just add that bacon right back to it, okay? And these are starting to cook out. They look so good. They smell delicious. I'm going to add this bacon to it. Then just keep on cooking for just a few more minutes. While that's happening, I'm going to go ahead and make our topping. Now, this is a beautiful, sharp poop cheese in the black rind that I bought yesterday at the farmer's market. Our topping is a 1/2 cup of sour cream, a 1/2 cup of Duke's mayonnaise, and 2 cups of shredded sharp cheddar cheese. So I'm making 2 pies. So I need a cup of Duke's mayonnaise, a cup of sour cream, and 4 cups of sharp shredded cheddar cheese. Now you can use the pack if you want to, if you don't have time. Please don't let the steps involved in making this keep you from trying it. Oh yeah, that's plenty. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to take that, just set this aside right here, since we don't need it. That'll make a good cheese sandwich later for David. Gather all this up. I'm going to put it right here in our bowl. This is our 2 pies. So we've got 4 cups of sharp shredded cheddar cheese, a cup of Duke's mayonnaise, Now some people just use mayonnaise, but when I just used mayonnaise, I thought it made it too greasy. So I decided that I would divide it half with mayonnaise and half with sour cream. And to me, it's just a good fit. So that's what we do. Okay. I'm going to stir this up. And we're going to start layering pies. So sometimes you have to be a little tough with these. If you want, that's why you put oil in there to keep them from sticking, but sometimes they do anyway. So we're just going to start laying them in here. I just use my hand. Use something else if you want to. But you can see this is why I put aluminum foil on the pan. Otherwise I would be fighting to scrub all that off when it was time for cleanup. And I ain't into that. Let's do about half of what we need for one pie. I wish y'all could smell it. Now listen, if you're not a fan of onions or bacon, put more tomatoes. Slice your tomatoes thicker and have more tomato. I like a happy balance in there. So that's one. Let me get the other one assembled and I'll be right back. Alright guys, finishing up assembling this one. I have an induction cooktop and it does not like it when you remove a pan. That's why it beeps at me, guys. Alright, let's do this last. I mixed up this layer a little bit and did it in an opposite order. That doesn't matter. Do it any order you want to make it. Okay?
Okay, so if I don't eat bacon, for instance, what's a variation of tomato pie I could do?
You know what? Some people do ham instead of bacon. I've made it before with Italian sausage and black olives and used mozzarella cheese. That one was pretty good. Although I don't know that I would call it a tomato pie. I'd probably call it an Italian pie. But the more tomatoes, I mean, you can just do so many tomatoes that there's no doubt it's a tomato pie. But this is the one I normally do that everyone really, really likes. But I did them in a different order, so this one's got tomatoes on top and this one's got the onions on top, but they both have the same amount. And it doesn't matter what type of filling you put in there, the topping's always the same. It's your cheese, sour cream, Duke's mayonnaise. Okay. We're going to just half this up. I'm going to put half of it on this one. I'm going to put half of it on this one. Save that last little bit, see which one needs it. Let's see. And all you're going to do is ice it like you're icing a cake, and you want to cover up all of those ingredients, okay? Spread it around. What's going to happen when we put this in the oven, that mayonnaise is going to turn to oil. It's going to run down in there, and it's going to finish cooking everything and make it just like velvet. How's that look?
Delicious.
Looking good? Mm-hmm. Okay, let me set it aside here for a minute. And you could just stick them, pop them in the oven just like that. And what we do is we put them in the oven at 350 degrees and you just watch them until all of your cheese melts and they're just a beautiful golden brown and they'll be ready to go. It only takes about 30 to 40 minutes depending on how quick your oven cooks. But let's make them a little prettier. I had a few tomatoes left over. So let's see. That one's kind of pretty because it's still got a little green on it. We'll use it. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to very thinly slice. And again, this is just for looks, like that. We're just going to lay them on top. And I've got a little fresh parsley over here. Let me get some of that. I think that's plenty. You could do fresh basil too. Especially if you were doing the Italian sausage that we talked about and the black olives. Put a little basil in it. I mean, throw it in with your Italian sausage when you're cooking it. But, you know, what's your favorite? Never tried one with shrimp.
Interesting.
But who says you can?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, guys, how do they look? We've got them all pretty, ready to go in the oven. 350 degrees. We're going to check back on them in about 30 minutes, okay? We'll see how they look. In the meantime, that gives me time to clean up my kitchen. And I'm going to start on some chicken noodle soup because my boy's sick and that's what he said he wanted to eat. Hey, we're ready. It's been 34 minutes and the timer went off about 3 minutes ago, but I still have missed cleanup, so I just left them in here. We're gonna take them out and see how they look. How's that, my dears? Those look pretty good. We're gonna let them sit for just a minute out of the oven so that they can start to solidify. Right now they're still kind of runny and juicy, but the cheese will start to cool off and it won't be so runny. So we'll give them about 5 minutes and then we'll do a taste test. Y'all ready to cut the pies? Let's do it. What do I want to use to do this with? I'm just going to use a knife and a spoon. And let's cut this one because that one's pretty. And I think I might take that to my neighbor, okay? So we'll cut into it. Pick it up. It's still mighty hot, y'all, so it's not going to serve like a pie. When you make it, you let it sit for about 20 or 30 minutes. It's a little bit better for that. It's a little bit better, yeah. But the longer it sits, the firmer it'll be. And these are delicious at room temperature. You don't have to serve them hot. Okay, guys. My taste tester is out of town. I didn't know it. So it's just Juju and me today, okay? So I'm going to take a bite, and then she's going to turn that camera off, and she and I are going to sit down with a glass of tea and eat our pie, okay?
Good pie. Very good.
I think we get another home run. You guys, please keep watching. Enjoy it, and I'll cook you something good every time.